Hello, everybody. Here's ENS, the European Nuclear Society webinar, today organized by the Italian young generation of the Italian Nuclear Society. So it's one of our 21 members across Europe. And today we have a pleasure of having a founder of Thor, Callum Thomas, who will be speaking about global careers in the nuclear industry, practical information and insights to help maximize your career opportunities. So if you have any questions in the meantime while Callum will be speaking, I will encourage you to raise the hand and just write the questions so we can, in the Q&A session, we can read aloud the questions and Callum will be happy to answer them. So Callum, I will make you to present now. And maybe please introduce yourself and what Thor is doing. I guess you will be presenting on your slides.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everybody. I was pleased to be asked to talk today. As Amelia said, I founded Thor Associates. We are a recruitment and human resources company dedicated to the nuclear industry. So we only work within the nuclear industry, but we're very global. For the last 20 years, I've been working in recruiting and search and HR in regulated high safety culture industries, and obviously for the last decade within Thor. So today I'm going to start off by just giving you a bit of an intro to Thor. Some of you may know our company, some may not. So I will give you a quick intro with some slides, and then talk about what we see in terms of the trends in human resources. Where are the jobs? Where are the needs? Which countries, which projects are hiring, and you know, what are the opportunities that exist within those projects and countries? And then my view from looking at the industry and as to what employers look for when they're looking at CVs and when they're interviewing people. Some tips that I've picked up over the years on networking, creating your network, finding job opportunities, creating your own personal brand so that you're attractive person to hire, and standing out from the crowd, because even though there is a skill shortage in nuclear, it's still a competitive area to be hired in. So it's important to stand out. And then we'll just finish off with some words about mentoring. I've been involved in mentoring, setting up mentoring relationships and programs within the nuclear industry and helping people get the most out of mentoring. So I can share a few of my experiences from that as well. So I should be talking for around just under 20 minutes, and then we're going to go to questions, and I welcome any questions, general or specific, and if I can answer, I will answer. So okay, so I'm going to share my screen now. I'm going to stop sharing the webcam and start sharing the screen. So you should be able to see my screen. While I just give you a bit of a history on Thor. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen now with just the company logo. So our mission as a company is building and sustaining the global nuclear workforce. That is what we do. We work only for the nuclear industry, but as I said, we're very broad in terms of our geographies. So I am British actually, but we have our head office in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, and then we have two offices in the UK, one in Bristol and one up at Sellafield. We have one in Finland, near the Olkiluoto plant. We have one in France, in Paris. We have one in the UAE, in Abu Dhabi. And then we have two in the US now, actually, one in Pittsburgh and one in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we have an office in Toronto as well. Actually, it was Ottawa, it's just moved to Toronto in Canada as well. So we're very spread out as an organization. Active mainly in Europe and the Americas, but also in the Middle East and a little bit in Asia. So what we do, I mean, we are a human capital partner for organizations in the nuclear industry. So whether they're looking at org design or workforce planning, whether it's a 1-year or a 5-year or 10-year workforce plan, creating those, the recruitment strategy, helping organizations work out where they're going to get the people from and what they have as an organization that is attractive, and then actually doing the actual recruitment itself, and then mobilizing people to whichever project or country that they're required, and then the onboarding process, including all the security clearance and visas, etc., and immigration. And then we advise on retention strategy. So you can kind of put this into a life cycle. We're involved supporting organizations in the nuclear industry from the idea of how do they design the organization, right through the practicalities of recruiting people and bringing them to the organization, often from other countries, and then how to keep hold of people and stop losing them to other industries. So we do this kind of work for governments, for regulators, for operators and utilities, research organizations, supply chain organizations, and consultancies all across the world. So in terms of where the jobs are, and we're going to come back to this in a second, but the nuclear industry is dominated by big projects that are over $1 billion in value. Just to give you an idea, these are the projects that we currently have existing relationships with. Where there's a multiple number, it means that there's multiple projects in that country. So in the US at the moment, we're working with 11 different projects in excess of $1 billion, where they're looking to grow their workforce over the coming years. Some of these are very developed, like nuclear new build or refurbishment in the US or the UK. There's already thousands of people on site, or in the UAE, where there's thousands of people on site, and some of them are really at the very, very beginning. So you look at places like Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. They're really just still working out how they're going to do it without really making any commitments yet. But these are probably the kind of places where we'll see demands for mobile nuclear professionals in the coming years. So this is really these are some examples of some of the clients that we work with at the moment. So as I said, we work with government, regulators, operators, utilities, equipment manufacturers. So you probably recognize many of the organizations there. There's obviously some there, some missing. We're not put all of our clients on there, but you can see the kind of cross section of people that we work with, and most of the big players in global nuclear, like EDF or Rosatom, for example. In terms of the type of people that we find for our clients, as I said, we are nuclear specific. So we're narrow in that we are focused on the nuclear industry, but we're broad in that we work in a lot of different countries, and also that we work in different job levels and roles. So really, we support everything from the engineering to construction, technical, training, safety, quality, all through the project management and control, which is a huge area. Areas like legal and consulting, and then commercial business development, and then we have an executive division within Thomas Thor as well, which focuses on placing executives. So we pretty much mirror the organogram of our organization. So whether they're looking for a research scientist or a project manager or a CEO, if they're in the nuclear industry, then we support those organizations. So this slide, I put this slide in because probably around 60% of the positions that we recruit for, we're looking for someone who already has nuclear experience. But the other 40%, we are bringing people from other industries into nuclear. And these are some of the industries that we bring people from, which you can imagine. These are industries that have complex technology, that are regulated, that are global, that often involve big projects. So there's, part of our role as a company is to act as an ambassador for the nuclear industry and for career opportunities in the nuclear industry. So we have been successful over the years in bringing talent from other industries into nuclear. For example, this has been particularly valuable when we bring people from other major projects, people that have delivered multi-billion-dollar projects on time and on budget in other industries like rail, for example, or defense. Nuclear needs those types of people. So we're always looking to bring talent into the sector, as well as helping people move around who are already in the sector. So as an organisation, we're very active in supporting the nuclear industry. So aside from the YGN chapters, which we support in many different countries, and the IYNC, which I've supported in terms of helping set up mentoring programs and I guess general direction for the IYNC. We also support WIN on a country-specific level and also on a global level. I work part-time for the IAEA, probably around 1 month a year, supporting them and the member states in human resource development. Normally it's around things like workforce planning, or how does the industry attract and recruit and retain the people it needs to succeed in the future. So it's a part-time commitment, I guess, that I have. But as a company and personally, I'm very invested in supporting the industry, and as a company, we are as well. So that is the intro. So I can stop sharing my screen now. Amelia, I will put back on my webcam.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So my screen's gone, right? It's right. We're just back on the webcam. Okay, so I mean, I really just wanted to give you a quick introduction to Thomas Thor, just as a context, because it kind of explained the perspective I have of the industry. And the first thing I want to talk about is the HR trends. And it's accepted that there is a shortage of people in the nuclear industry, but that doesn't always mean that it's very, very easy to get a job. I think a lot of the projections about workforce are assuming that a lot of these big projects are going ahead, like the new build projects, which will suck in loads of the workforce already in the industry, and assuming that people retire when they get to whatever, 60 or 62. And the reality is that a lot of the big projects get delayed, and also people don't really retire. They continue to work as consultants. So, I've been reading for the last 20 years about how we're on a cliff edge, and suddenly there's going to be not enough nuclear professionals, and the industry is going to suffer. The reality is we're not seeing that yet. Those projections are not turning yet into reality. The uncertainty is a big factor in the HR trends in nuclear, because organizations in the supply chain, which are the main hirers of people, they wait until it's certain before they start hiring. So we've seen in the last, let's say, 10 years, we've seen big supply chain companies, they'll have a year where they have a high intake of graduates, and then they'll have a couple of years when they have no intake, because they can't see the commitment coming from their clients. So what we see are that people wait till the last minute. And a lot of organizations come to us, and what they should have done is been hiring people 3 years ago and training them and getting them ready, but they have not been doing it. Now, you can't really blame them, because the reason they haven't been doing it is because they're not sure if they're going to win the work. They're not sure if they're going to get the commitment from their clients. But it creates this environment in terms of human resource and recruiting where everything is urgent. You find that when organizations are recruiting, they need people really quickly. They need them to get up to speed quickly, and that's when they tend to then be more interested in hiring people with more experience rather than bringing in people that need training. So it kind of, I mean, our role in the industry, there's 60 of us in Thomas Thor. All of us are involved in recruiting in the nuclear industry only. So there's 60 sets of eyes and ears and networks on this watching, and we're just watching to see which organizations are ready to act, which organizations are ready to recruit, and then support them as they go through the process. So everyone talks about, we see a human resource trend of people moving towards Asia, and that's not it is true, but it's not really very useful, because what we're really interested in, I imagine the audience here today, what we're really interested in are jobs where English is the project language, or maybe French or European language, whereas a lot of the growth in Asia is domestic growth in China and India. and it doesn't really open up opportunities for Europeans and North Americans to to move, to be honest. So when I'm talking about HR trends, I'm going to focus really on Europe and North America. There are some big opportunities. Now, the most visible ones tend to be the new build. So you've got, obviously, in the US with Vogel, you have the Hinkley C project in the UK, we have Flamanville in France, we have Olkiluoto in Finland. All of these are big hirers, and they will continue to be in the coming few years, because they are, obviously, as we all know, running behind. So those are obvious targets, and the supply chains. But then we have a lot of decommissioning coming, and a lot of the opportunities that will come in the next decade will be in decommissioning and waste management in countries like France and the UK and the US and Germany. And so those opportunities we are keeping a very close eye on those opportunities. We're also following with interest the advanced reactors. And there's a huge amount of noise and marketing around those at the moment, but very few are actually hiring. So we've got NuScale in the US is probably leading the way in terms of their investment, hiring people. Then you've got companies like Rolls-Royce in the UK who are also investing. And then you've got a few of the others like TerraPower Terrestrial in Canada, but they all have quite small teams. It's really only, I say, NuScale that's really scaling up. So the actual career opportunities there at the moment, the way I see it, they're relatively low. They'll start building, but at the moment they're relatively low. We see every country is interested in the demographics. Every country has its own graph, which shows that there is an aging demographic in the industry. And on the face of it, they all want to bring more young people into the industry. But as I said, they actually are holding hiring decisions until they need to. That said, there is a huge amount of hiring going on in the industry, but the way we look at it is on a country and a project basis. So when we look at HR trends in the nuclear industry, we're looking at which countries are promoting or growing their nuclear, or even supporting their nuclear industry at the moment, and then which projects are happening, and then which organizations are involved in those projects. And some of them, as I say, could be new builds, some of them could be operations or lifetime extension. So in Canada, for example, the lifetime extensions at the plants there, they are almost as big as new build. Canada is probably the country that the most expats are moving to from other countries right now. Loads of Americans going there, loads of Europeans going there to support not only in the lifetime extension projects, but also in the research and development. So the Canadian nuclear laboratories have got an ambitious development program, as well as they have decommissioning coming as well. And Canada are really leading the way, trying to lead the way as the global hub of advanced reactors and SMRs. So it's a very exciting place at the moment. It's probably one of the few countries in the world that has government backing. It has multiple projects in different parts of the lifestyle of the sector, and they're very open to international workforce. Whereas if you look at the US, for example, it's actually harder to move. It's a lot harder to move to the US and get a visa than a worker visa than it is to go to Canada, for example. The hoops you have to jump through are stronger. That said, the industry in the US is huge, and there are still a lot of opportunities, including the president of the I1C, Luca, who's working over in one of the labs in the US. I'm sure most of you know Luca. So there's a lot of opportunity, but it's in pockets here, there, and everywhere, I think. Diversity and inclusion is a really big topic at the moment. And diversity does not just include gender. So the UK and Canada, for example, have targets for diversity, but they really only set targets for gender diversity. UK to be 40% female by the year 2030. Canada have set a target to be 50-50, 50% female, 50% male by 2030. Neither country has a plan on how to achieve it. And they're really just hoping that it's going to get there. So I've been involved in setting up a group for the UK, diversity and inclusion in the UK. UK Nuclear to help not just gender diversity, but all the other types of diversity. And nationality and cultural background is very much part of diversity. If we look at some of the teams in some of the international engineering firms, they're a mix of different nationalities. And we encourage our clients to say, yeah, gender diversity is one thing you should look at, but you also should bring in people of different ages, of different nationalities, different experience backgrounds as well. And this is a positive thing for people interested in working internationally in the nuclear industry, because organizations are more and more interested in having international teams, which is a good thing. To the next point, what employers look for in CVs and interviews. I think most organizations, when they're hiring, they'll receive a stack of CVs and they'll be looking for to try and create some kind of shortlist. So I think there is a good layout to a CV, and if anyone's interested, I'd be happy to send around what I would consider a good format for a CV. It should have a good summary on the top, which explains that, for example, that you may be interested in moving to another country and why. The CV, as often as possible, should either be tailored for an opportunity or it should be accompanied by a covering letter. It's amazing how few people write a covering letter, even though it's probably the most basic advice you could have within job hunting. I think the way to look at it is that you just have to assume that your CV will be on a pile with 20 other CVs. And you've got to put yourself in the shoes of the person reviewing the 20, and you've got to say, why would they choose my CV to be one of the 3 or 5 people interviewed? And tailoring the CV slightly is advantageous, and also just writing a short 1 page or half a page covering letter, which might include the fact that you're ready to relocate. Often hirers will discriminate when they're looking through CVs. They'll discriminate people that are not in the country because they'll think, well, they may not be serious about moving, or they'll think we're going to have to pay them a lot of relocation. They'll somehow, even if it is subconsciously, they'll be finding a reason to whittle down from 20 to 3 or 5 CVs. So explaining.
I have a little question here,
Yeah.
Helen, if I may. Don't you think it's also the issue of language, that it has to be very almost native level, working in a certain country in the nuclear industry? And the second thing is, if the person have the same safety culture approach as is required in a certain country. So I think these two aspects that also, influencing the HR person hiring the persons from the same country. Maybe you have some opinion on this.
Yeah, it's very true. And it could say, yeah, this person, maybe they are native speaking in the language, maybe they understand the regulatory regime. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But this is about just improving the chances, I think. And when we're representing people that are moving internationally for a job, we are telling the client their story. This is why they're interested in moving to this country. This is how serious they are. They are ready to move. This is what they understand about the regulatory regime, even though they haven't worked in it. This is the level of their English, for example, or French, or or German, or whatever language is required. It just needs a bit of backstory. And I think, if we are representing people, then we give our client the backstory. But often you don't get the opportunity to give a backstory, which is why a tailored CV. Or hello, can you hear me? Which is why, a tailored CV or
I would just ask the audience very quickly if you are listening, if you are hearing me.
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? No? Yes. You can. Yeah. Okay. Okay, shall I continue? Yeah? Yeah, okay. I'm assuming everyone can hear.
Apologies, if something was wrong with that. So, okay, I hope the 21 attendees here are still with us. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, I think Antonio could hear me, so I'm assuming everyone else could. So I'm going to continue.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of tips, I'd say on networking, and I guess we'll come back to the more on these on the questions. But I think there are waiting for jobs and then applying for them with a generic CV and no covering letter is probably the weakest way to apply for a role. So having a short covering letter tailored for each opportunity, I think is the right way to go. But without a shadow of a doubt, the number one piece of advice I'd give to anyone looking for a job is to try and make direct contact with the organization and use your network to try and speak to someone in that organization who could maybe recommend you, or even network to try and find one of the people involved in the project or one of the people hiring. It's amazing what you can uncover when you start looking at your network and trying to get some additional information or make a personal introduction. It goes so far. It really does when applying. So, and between us in the nuclear industry, we're all very cooperative and everyone's willing to help each other. So pretty much if there's a project that you're interested in working in, if you look around, you will always know somebody who knows someone who works there and can let us know a bit more about the position. And I think it really stands out. If you're sending a personal email to the person hiring and say, look, I've submitted my CV, but I'm really interested to find out more, if there's an opportunity for an informal conversation. It's not always possible because sometimes there are rules around the recruiting, and obviously you can't circumvent the rules. But networking the way in, I think, is really effective. And often the projects and organisations, these are long-term opportunities. So being at an event where someone's presenting or going to an event at that organisation or that project is just a great way of showing real interest. And there's often people I meet and they're interested in a certain country or a project, and they'll go there and meet the people they know in the industry and start investing and showing that they're investing in thinking about moving to that project or country. So networks build as the years go by, but to me it's the most important. And also just being clear that we're ready to relocate. A lot of people say they're ready to relocate, but then when it comes to it, they're not really ready. And so having thought about it, things like the visa and security clearance, there are some countries that are easier to move to than others. Thinking about that in advance makes sense. So, for example, Canada has a very old security clearance procedure where if you're not from Canada, US, UK, New Zealand, one other country, I can't remember, then you have to go through a much more detailed security clearance process, which takes a bit longer. So it's good to know those kind of things and to do a bit of homework on which country you're thinking about going to. Just to finish off before we go to questions about mentoring, I've been involved in mentoring. I've been mentored myself. I've been involved in mentoring others, and I've been involved in helping set up mentoring programs. And I mean, for me myself, it's been so valuable for my career. And as I go through and as our company grows, I find different mentors that can help me and us to get through the next stage. But just a few things on mentoring. I think first of all, for me, the rule number one is it has to be a mutually beneficial relationship. The person mentoring, they have to get something from it. Now, often what they get from it is the pleasure of giving something back and imparting their knowledge and their advice on someone else. But there also has to be a click in terms of personality. And I think it's, when I look for a mentor, I'm looking at people and I'm thinking, what could I do for them? What can I offer them that might be of value? And just making sure there's something that can keep the relationship enduring. And then the other thing is that when identifying someone that might be a mentor is no guarantee that they will be a mentor. So I think it's always good to go in to a first conversation with a potential mentor with a real open mind and just say, look, I have huge respect for what you've done. I would love to learn a bit about that, but I make no assumption that you have the time or that it's the right or that we're the right two people to have a mentor-mentee relationship, but I just appreciate a conversation, and then speak to someone for an hour or meet with them once, and then just see, because some people can just provide one-off mentoring. You know, they can provide their perspective and opinion and some advice, but maybe it's not something that should be continued every 3 months or 6 months or 1 month or whatever. And I think that's fine. It's fine to ask people for their support and advice, even if it's just a one-off, knowing that if you just have a habit of doing this through your career, every few years you'll have a real click with someone who ends up being a mentor. So probably for me personally, I probably speak to 4 or 5 people a year that I think on paper are just the perfect person to mentor me, either through what we're trying to do in the nuclear industry or through my own personal development. And of those, maybe 1 every 2 years turns into a mentor that I then meet every quarter or so, and turn it into a formal relationship. And those are the ones where often, you know, I've got something that I can give back. And sometimes it's really concrete, like in my position, sometimes I'm helping them to find work. And in other positions, they're, you know, maybe they're retired. They just want to have a chat. They just want to know what's going on in the nuclear industry and be kept up to date with what's happening and pass on their knowledge. So it really, you know, it really depends. But you know, taking that kind of flexible, always being on the lookout for a mentor, I think is really important. Making sure that it's mutually beneficial, and being open-minded, that you may just talk to people once and it may not turn into a mentorship relationship, but others will. But just kind of having it as a constant project, if you like, it to me has served me really well. And the people I know in the industry, the most successful people, when I talk to them, they nearly all apportion some of their success to the mentors that they've had through their career. So there's a very strong correlation between successful people and happy people and those that have managed to use mentoring successfully. So I will, on that note, I will stop talking and invite any questions, please.
I have maybe a short.
Sorry, just a few seconds because.
Antonio, I wanted to introduce you shortly, but before you start, I wanted to just have a short comment on the networking and how important the networking is, as Callum mentioned. As one thing, what European Nuclear Society is doing has a very wide network of young professionals in nuclear who are associated in different national societies in 21 countries. And I think if you are not yet a member of any young generation network, please do so, because senior professionals are approaching the young generation associated in certain countries under the network, and they are really offering a lot of help and mentorship programs really to the people who are associated in the network. I think it's the easiest way to address this young generation in nuclear. And Antonio Soriero from Young Generation Network of Italy, maybe you can say a few words about your network, how you're cooperating with seniors as well, and who are you doing? What are you doing?
Yes, thank you, Emilia. We are very honored and proud to have organized this webinar with Callum Thomas, and I want to thank Callum for his beautiful and interesting presentation. And I'm happy to announce that we have another webinar at the end of March with the Professor Jacopo Bongiorno from MIT. And we are always in the same platform with you, with the European Nuclear Society and the European Nuclear Society Young Generation. And we are very happy for this collaboration, and we feel part of this big network, as Emilia told. So thank you all, and thank you to all the participants from Italy and abroad.
Okay, maybe could you, Antonio, would you like to say a few words? How do you interact with seniors and with the young generations? How do you attract them to your network in Italy?
Yes, just a few words before the Q&A panel. We have a young generation that are collecting a network of more than 100 people in Italy, and it's not so easy if imagine that since our young generation is active since 2 years. So we are happy to be involved in this kind of initiative. We'll be present at the Slovenian Nuclear Young Generation Congress the next March 5th. And we are in the middle of the Italian debate about research, of course, and about the commissioning and the location of the National Repository for Wastes. So this is our current activity, and we are going forward in synergy with Italian companies and universities. So we are very happy of the network we built.
Yeah, I think that the connection with the companies, with the young generation professionals is very important, because this is the way how you make use of networking. Okay, we have one question, so we can start. So all the attendees, 22 attendees now, they are following this webinar. You have a time to put the questions to Callum or to Antonio. Okay, now it's the question from anonymous person coming, asking for the diversity and nationality. So in regards for diversity and nationality, will be accepted to hire a nuclear engineer from Middle East, because most of the companies say about diversity and nationality, and they didn't allow us to join their team.
So the question is about opportunities in the Middle East. Can you just repeat the?
No, the opposite. That the person from the nuclear engineer for the Middle East would like to enter some probably European company. Yeah. Even if the European companies are talking about diversity, also in nationalities, they are not allowed, or they're not open so much to the Middle East folks.
Yeah, I mean, in the EU, obviously anyone moving around is quite easy, because there's no visa requirement, and most countries will give security clearance to an EU citizen. But if they're coming from a Middle Eastern country, it's more difficult. I don't know which countries we're talking about, but it is more difficult. There are some people working in Europe from Middle Eastern countries, but not that many. And you know, companies might say, well, I mean, ultimately, I think if they can find people in Europe where there are less visa and less security clearance issues, then that will be their preference. But in that case, it would be difficult just to apply for a job and to get the job. That case, you're going to have to make contact with people and try and make a more personal approach to organizations and projects as one thing. And then the other, it will depend what the skills are. I mean, there are people in some research areas like some of the research sites in Europe where the skills needed are very, very rare. If the skills are rare and they don't exist within Europe, then organizations will look more outside. But it's still a relatively new thing. Like companies will agree that having diversity in all areas, gender, age, race, nationality, is a good thing. But then they will still try and hire where it's easiest, which is from their country or from the countries next door.
Okay, the question was from Mohammed Salam. Now I see his name. Okay, now I have another question. I'm Ivan Yonati. I'm making my master thesis project. I would ask if there are some internship opportunity or new graduates opportunity. Thank you.
What's the master's topic? Sorry.
There's no. Okay. Ivan, maybe if you could add what you're studying.
Yeah. So.
I will unmute you now. Ivan, can you speak?
Oh yes. I am Ivan Lonati. I am a nuclear engineering master student, and I'm starting my master thesis in nuclear engineering, of course. But this more specific topic is modelizing of a nerve reactor, neutronic nerve reactor. So it's very, very specific topic. But my question was just after my thesis work or my graduation, there are some opportunity or some internship to enter in the work to start the work.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I'd say that.
Okay.
there are not many people with a master's in nuclear engineering. There's not many universities that do it, and so that's a good qualification to have. I would say yes, there are opportunities I'd say in Europe and also in the US and Canada. I think the way to do it is to look at specific organizations or research facilities that you're interested in, and then approach them directly. And just take the approach of thinking, if it's the Joint Research Center in Germany or in the Netherlands, or whether it's one of the labs in the UK or Canada, if you can find, what you're doing is your thesis is very, very specific. If there are certain fields you're interested in, then it's good to have a look at which labs and which organizations are working in those fields, and then try and connect with people that are involved, and then through those people find out what the opportunities are, because internships are not often advertised. They're done by direct communication with the university or bringing in people that they know. So you can't kind of wait for them to be advertised. You need to choose which projects and organizations you think could value from your skills, and then work out who do you know around that area, or even find people in LinkedIn that are working in that organization, make contact, and then try and build a little network to find out if there's an opportunity. That would be my advice.
Okay, another question is from Timothy Rose from Finland. Is it better to specialize in one field, say nuclear safety or operations, or to try and get experience of multiple areas within nuclear? And is it better to get experience outside the industry? This is an additional question.
It all depends on what kind of job you're going for. So if you're joining a graduate scheme for a big engineering company, then it's good to have multiple areas of experience, because then you can then do different things within that organization, the graduate program, and then you specialize a little bit later on. But in general, to stand out from the crowd, it's good to specialize. But then it's difficult to guess, which area should you specialize in now, that in 3 years or 2 years it will be easy to get a job in. There'll be good jobs. So there are advantages and disadvantages to specializing, I think. But I think if you're looking to go into a big company and get in their graduate scheme, then I think being general is fine. If you're looking to work in a specific country or a specific type of project, then I would start working towards those skills. So, there are certain skills that we know now will be in short supply. So, like digital INC, we know is a very tough area. So anything around cyber security is a tough area. And anything around, the need for waste and decommissioning experts, characterization of waste, decommissioning. Technologies or strategies, robotics, the use of robotics within decommissioning, but also other areas of nuclear. We could probably draw a list of 10 or 15 areas where we know they're growing. We know there's already a skill shortage, so they would make sense now to specialize in for the future. So you could. I think you've got probably two routes. You either look to get into a graduate program with a big company where they help you explore different areas and then you specialize. Or you do your own research, you look at where the industry is going, you look at what you're interested in, and then you make a commitment to go into one of these areas where there is a skill shortage now and we know that it's growing.
Okay, I have another question from Roberta Pipinelli. How easy is entering the nuclear industry if you hold a master and PhD in nuclear engineering? You are over 40 and have experience in the risk analysis, extreme events, not strictly related to the nuclear field, but on process industry. And she adds also that she has always kept update on nuclear disciplines, the commissioning, non-proliferation, new technologies in nuclear, etc.
Yeah. It is possible, but it would depend on the job, because if they're looking for recent experience, and if you're one of the applicants in 20, let's say, and the others have more recent experience, then it's going to make it harder. But but looking at roles in where the recent experience is not so important. So maybe in a research organisation, then that would open up the opportunity. But it's very difficult to say. But if you want to, you have my contact details. If you want to send me your CV, I'd be happy to have, Roberta, I'd be happy to have a look at it and let you know which organisations I think might be worth approaching. I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, this is a very direct result of the webinar. I don't see any other questions. I wait maybe another minute. It's somebody who, if you would like to, you can also raise a hand, and I will be unmuting you, so you don't need to type now. We have still a few minutes left before finishing this conversation. So, do you have any questions? Okay. I have a Mohammed who wants to. Okay, Mohammed, I unmuted you.
Yes, first, thanks for this webinar and for your intelligent guest, and thank you for the questions. He was really reply so honestly. But I want to ask, I'm doing now my master degree in Russia about neutronics in high temperature reactor. And how do you think this might be what should I do as a next step? This is my advice. By the way, I'm Egyptian, so reversing my questions back.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'd say that's a good position to be in, because Rosatom are extremely successful at the moment in building or starting to build their technology in other countries. So, I mean, I would imagine there will be opportunities for you, obviously, in Egypt as the nuclear program grows. There may also be opportunities for you in other countries where Rosatom are building, which are, in Asia or in the Middle East or even in South America, maybe. So, I mean, one advice I might give is while you're in Russia, to make the most of the time there, and in terms of the cultural assimilation, and if you can get any Russian language skills, then that would be really useful as well. I do know that normally Rosatom have a project language of English. So in Egypt, for example, officially, the project language is English, even though neither the country nor the supplier Rosatom have a native language of English. So English language plus Russian is quite a useful combination now, I would think. So maybe looking at some of the countries where Rosatom are active, and then seeing if there are any of those that are interesting, could be interesting. I know that Rosatom as well are very interested in becoming more of an international organization. At the moment, they have around 250,000 employees. It's a very Russian organization, as you can imagine. But as they grow and they're becoming more global, they're more interested in having English as a language within their organization, and also hiring international people. So I'd say that's an opportunity. But also you've obviously gathered experience working abroad as well. So I'd say opportunities in the UAE as the plant starts operating, there will be opportunities there. And maybe in other countries where they're developing new nuclear. So I think that it's good opportunity, and it's probably a good time to have that kind of mix. You've got, and especially if you throw in a little bit of Russian understanding of the nuclear industry, the culture, and the language. I think that could be really useful.
Okay. I hope that Mohammed, you got a really good insight what to do now. Okay, yeah, maybe a few points on the. I see there is another. No. So to let you know that the European Nuclear Society, together with the University of Pisa, under the ENEN Plus project, what we use is EU-funded project, where there is also 1 million euros for mobility to conduct part of the research part of your PhD or master in a different country. It's also organizing the series of webinars on careers. So we have HR representatives coming from the certain countries, and we will be also organizing an interactive session with them where you can put really the questions directly to them on their HR plans. So the next webinar, what I would like to share with you, is on 12th of March, yes, with Westinghouse, and then another one will be on 28th of March with GE Healthcare. These are the two companies who are also corporate members of the European Nuclear Society, and there will be more coming up. So if you, I will be sharing this information on our LinkedIn profile of ENS, so you can follow there the information, and the records of all the webinars will be put also on our YouTube channel. If Callum allows us also with this one for today.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Okay.
Okay. Antonio, do you have any comments? Final comments?
No, nothing particular. If not, to thank you again for the platform, to the ENS, and to Callum for his interesting presentation. And I want to add that if you want any information about the Italian nuclear young generation, you can visit the the website of Italian Nuclear Association, AIN, or visit our page on Facebook, Twitter, and the groups on LinkedIn and Facebook. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Callum. Thank you, Antonio.
Okay, thank you both. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.